Greater Manchester Police have confirmed that the terrorist Jihad al-Shami had been on bail for alleged rape when he carried out the killings this week.
Yes, additionally and interestingly, 3 more people have been arrested, bringing the number of those suspected to be involved in some way up to 6.
Well, yesterday crowds heckled Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy during a vigil in Crumpsall.
So therefore, I have great pleasure in introducing our Deputy Prime Minister, David Lammy. And before I do, please, we know how we all feel. We know how we all feel.
Go to Palestine! Shame on you! Shame on you! Go to Palestine! Leave us alone!
Well, the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, joins us now. A very good morning to you. I think the thing that's on everybody's mind at the moment, other than, total and utter sympathy and grief for those who lost their lives and who've been injured and their families, is what's going to happen to the marches today? Should they be stopped?
The marches, in my view, should be stopped, and I say that for 2 reasons. Firstly, as a mark of respect to the families of the victims in Manchester and indeed the whole Jewish community in the United Kingdom, who are in grief and shock, as you would expect, and who, frankly, I think have been feeling a sense of intimidation from some of these marches that have been going on for so long. That's the first reason. The second reason is the police, both in Manchester and the Metropolitan Police in London, have said they don't have the resources to both properly police the protest and also protect the Jewish community and synagogues at the same time. Of course, today is Saturday, the Sabbath day in the Jewish calendar. Yet the organisers of these marches have refused to cancel them. It's not too late. I'm standing here in London in the morning. They could still cancel these marches or protests, and I think, frankly, they should for the 2 reasons I've just said.
Shadow Home Secretary, what do you feel like listening and seeing the reaction that the Deputy Prime Minister received in Crumpsall?
Well, obviously the Jewish community are very, very angry and very hurt and feel that anti-Semitism in this country is not being fought in the way that it should. I spoke 2 or 3 weeks ago, or maybe 4 weeks ago, at a rally organised by the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism in central London. 70,000 people attended that rally because they feel so strongly about the anti-Semitism which they experience. No government minister appeared on that platform to speak to the UK's Jewish community, which I think was terrible. I also think that there is increasingly an atmosphere of intimidation directed at the Jewish community, which we need to do a lot more to combat. People in positions of leadership, including the government. We also see extremism. Obviously, the terrorist murder on Thursday morning was the most extreme form of extremism, but we do see hundreds of cases referred to prevent for Islamist extremism each year. And I think all of us in society need to do more to call that out, including the Muslim community. Obviously, the vast majority of this country's Muslim community are decent, law-abiding people. But I think all of us, including the law-abiding Muslim majority, need to call out and stand up to the extremist minority, to be brave in doing that. Because if we don't confront extremism, then it allows anti-Semitism to flourish, and in the most extreme cases, it leads to terrorist murder of the kind we saw on Thursday, which, of course, sadly, is not the only terrorist murder of that kind we've seen over recent years.
Why has this happened in our country? Why has anti-Semitism grown so strong?
Well, I think partly because some people have reacted against what's happening in the Middle East in a way that I think is completely unjustifiable, in the sense that the UK's Jewish community obviously are in no way to be sort of blamed for what people may be unhappy about in the Middle East. That association that some people have made is completely unreasonable. Firstly, secondly, just to repeat the point I made a second ago, I don't think our society as a whole, including political leaders, have done enough to stand up to extremism and confront it wherever we see it. That is the duty that sits on all of us, but it does also sit on the shoulders of the vast majority of peaceful, law-abiding members of the Muslim community, who I think where they see extremism have to call it out and confront it just as much as politicians on both sides, including me, have an obligation to do it as well. All of us, every single one of us in this country, politicians, Muslim community, people who are not religious at all of us have that obligation. And I think all of us need to step up and do that, because if we don't confront extremism and if we don't confront anti-Semitism, we see where that leads. We saw where that led in Manchester on Thursday morning. And I think, if I can just say to the government, they should have sent a senior minister, to speak alongside the chief rabbi, alongside like me and others on that platform 4 weeks ago, at the campaign against anti-Semitism march, because the Jewish community need to know that we stand alongside them in fighting anti-Semitism.
Just to move on to other subjects, Chris, there you are. You're on the eve of your conference, which will be held in Manchester, which will be very sensitive for you. But one of the things you guys as a party are going to have to face is defectors. And Kemi Badenoch, I mean, she's got a view on them. What's your view on people who would say the Conservatives have had it, we're going to reform?
Well, I would say they're wrong. I'd say don't do it. I'd say show some patience. Look, reform is essentially, they've got good slogans, I'll give them that, but these slogans are written on the back of a fag packet in a pub. They don't stand up to any serious scrutiny. They don't have any detail behind them. We saw that announcement, was it a week or so ago, where Nigel Farage fell apart within like a few minutes of questioning because he hadn't got his facts straight on European Union citizens. Reform is essentially a one-man party. There is only room for Nigel Farage in that party, and any Conservatives who join it will pretty soon discover that. That's why people like Ben Habib, Rupert Lowe, even Alan Sked, going back to the 1990s, end up leaving, because it is essentially a one-man organisation. Look, what the Conservative Party offer under new leadership is not just radical policies like the ECHR withdrawal policy that we're announcing this morning, but we do it in a way that is carefully thought out. We don't shoot from the hip. We don't just make up slogans that fall apart under scrutiny. We actually think things through properly and have a carefully developed plan which will actually work in practice. We're a team, we're a big team, we're a strong team. We think about things properly. We don't shoot from the hip, and that is the difference between us and reform. And I just ask people for the patience to work all of those things through. We're going to see a lot more new ideas at conference. ECHR withdrawal has been announced this morning. There is a lot more to come. And I think by the end of conference, by Wednesday, just 4 days' time, people will see the Conservative Party is very much back in business.
OK, well, Chris, have yourself and your party a good conference. No doubt we'll get a chance to speak to you as the week progresses. Thank you very much indeed.
I'm sure.
Thank you.
But back to those terrible events that happened in Manchester. Let's cross live now to Crumpsall and join GB News' North West of England reporter Sophie Reaper. Sophie, what's the situation there this morning?
Well, Anne, the situation is very much as it has been for the past 48 hours or so. The mood is still a sombre one. It's still one of sadness, of heartbreak and of grief. You can, of course, see the police cordon behind me where people have been coming over the past couple of days to show their respects and to lay flowers. Of course, overnight we heard from counter-terrorist police confirming that the devices worn by Jihad, the terrorist that carried out that attack, that was not a viable device. They also said that he may have been influenced by extreme Islamist ideology. That was Lawrence Taylor, the head of counter-terrorism policing, speaking last night. We also heard, of course, last night that the terrorist who carried out the attack, it's reported that as he approached the synagogue, he shouted, "This is what they get for killing our children." And of course, as well, that he was on bail from an alleged rape attempt at the time of the attack. Of course, he was shot and killed by Greater Manchester Police armed officers as they carried out their duty to end his terrorist attack. Of course, as I say, this is a community still in grief, but we saw yesterday at that vigil taking place here that there is a lot of anger as well. People furious with the government, they say, for allowing this rise of anti-Semitism and for allowing these pro-Palestinian protests to continue. Of course, we're expecting some more of those later today, so I'm sure tensions will be high.